I'm Sarah Brown, and this is The Mothers, real conversations with leaders, creators, and thinkers about who we are, what we want, and how we build meaningful lives alongside motherhood. Hello, my friends. It is the final week of February. Although, don't tell anyone, but I'm recording this opener in the middle of February, so I can get ahead of things and try to be off over February break. TBD if this works. But that means if past performance predicts future performance, who the hell knows what has happened in the world between now and February 24th when we release this episode. What I do know, though, is that I hope I navigate it the way our guest this week navigates life. With dignity, compassion, the resilience of a true athlete, integrity, a little grace, and never alone. Amber Coleman-Mortley was one of the most self-possessed guests I've had the pleasure to interview so far. She knows herself, knows what she's capable of. That does not change based on external circumstances. As she says, Amber is not her achievements or resume. Amber is the principles by which she lives. How many of us can say that? And her life is about giving, not getting. As she says, you always have something to give. Despite her dismissal of resumes, she actually has a pretty awesome one. And it's rooted in justice, advocacy, media, and community building. A high school valedictorian, I had to throw that in, and a 3-sport varsity athlete in college, she followed her athletic passion to coach at Sidwell Friends School. You know, the one where the Clintons and Obamas sent their kids. Then she was at iCivics, the nonprofit founded by Sandra Day O'Connor, dedicated to advancing civic learning among teachers and students. After that, she went on to lead community and culture at the Female Quotient, spearheading efforts to bring equality to the workplace. You may have also seen her, and in some cases her kids, her 3 daughters, I should say, and her own mother, in the LA Times, New York Times, the Washington Post. There's an incredible feature including her in the New York Times with her 3 daughters and her mother participating in the March on Washington in 2017. As she says in her interview, I feel responsible for making sure my daughters are better off than me. And yet, even for folks like Amber, economic realities come to a head. The Female Quotient went through layoffs, and she found herself caught up in those rounds. But instead of shame, this was remarkable to me. She gathered her children to listen in on the conversation with her manager in which she learned the news that she was going to be let go. Can you imagine actually doing that? I can't imagine doing that. But every moment for Amber is a learning opportunity. And it's a learning opportunity for her kids, even and maybe even particularly the hardest ones. So I hope you'll listen to this conversation with an open heart. It's certainly how Amber approaches her life as a mother, a woman, an athlete, an executive leader, a citizen, and always with a belief that it's worth finding a better way, which often comes slowly. She said to me, you know, it could be worse, but it could also be better. So let's make it better. Please enjoy my conversation with Amber Coleman-Mortley. And yes, let's make it better. We're here. We did it.
Morning.
Good morning, stranger. I love all of these conversations. It's so funny. I mean, there's some people that I wrangle on who I do know. Increasingly, it's people that are people I'm intrigued by and curious about. And so we get on these things and I'm like, great to meet you. Let me ask you some questions about your life.
Yes. Hopefully it's mutual therapy.
So thank you for being so
in a way.
game. I will say many of our guests do say that this was sort of therapeutic for them. I also find it therapeutic because it makes me, I don't know, I get to ask these like really impressive people questions about really their humanity. And then it makes me be like, oh, maybe I'm not as weird as I thought.
You never are.
Maybe I should be weirder. Exactly. But thank you so much for joining us. Before we dive in, I didn't know, do you have any questions about what to expect or any like
No, I mean,
boundaries for
no.
me?
I will let you
Yeah.
know that I have been fired from my job.
I was going to ask, is that
Let's
cool to talk
freaking
about?
talk about it because my kids were there when
Hell
I
yeah.
got fired.
Okay.
So like it's okay to talk about.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
So
Yes. You strike me as a very transparent. This is something
so
I
I was like, y'all
admired
come in the
and was
room.
like, I want to be more like this. You're like, let's put it all out there. We're all just living through this life in our own way somehow.
Exactly.
Um, cool. All right. Amber, welcome. This is going to be so fun. I have to say, so we open, typically we like to allow our guests to sort of share their version of their story as it exists, as it shows up for them today. I know our stories, we tell stories so we can survive. And I feel like whatever day it is, however I need to feel, I have a different story about who I am and how this all happened. But before we get into that, when I was sleuthing around the internet to get as good an understanding of you as I could. I mean, there's so much about you that is out there and hard on your sleeve out there. Something about the video of you and your 3 kids and your mother marching on Washington after the inauguration in
Hmm.
2017. Something about the hope, the idealism, righteous idealism, the family, the community element, the we're just here to do the right thing. Like it was just so I don't know, it made me tear up just witnessing it and like how innocent your kids are. And I don't know. I was like, I cannot wait for this conversation. And then everything that I've learned about you since, again, the internet is not necessarily the most truthiest place, but so you can tell me, set me straight. But I just feel like you are living life in such with a gratitude forward approach and so community oriented, so together oriented, so we can be okay oriented. So it's just, I felt lucky that you were going to get on this call because I will say it's Tuesday in December. It's fucking
That.
cold. Like Amber's going to make me feel better.
Oh, yay.
Um, so anyway, all that being said, you tell me, who is Amber? How do we arrive where we are today? What
Oh
makes you
my
you?
God. I think what makes me is this idea that one, all of us have the capacity to learn anything, right? If we so
Mhm.
choose. I think I walk around with an openness to figure things out. If I don't know it, I would say that was what motherhood was for me as well. I think, who am I? Like, I was a former 3-sport collegiate athlete. I had an NCAA
Yeah,
appearance.
cool.
I've been to the White House. I've been a blogger. I've worked, for nonprofits and done all kinds of things. I've traveled the world.
Yeah.
I think those things are minor footnotes for the beautiful tapestry of what I'm trying to create for myself and what I call my life. For me, I just
Mhm.
want to look back at the end of all of this and say, yo, girl, you rode that body into the ground and not in like a crazy way,
Oh,
but like
yeah.
you played that player character the best possible way that you can. You gave her every possible shot. You've left nothing on the table. And so that's,
Oh,
yeah, that's
yeah.
who I am, I guess. Yeah.
Where did that come from? How did you learn
I
that?
think, like, I grew up, unfortunately, it's really weird. Like, the first half of my life was abundance, and then, weird things
Mm,
happened with my parents. And so I ended up being raised by a single
mm.
mom who was very much focused on, like, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. That was something that she
Wow.
literally just said to us, like, all the time. We're all dealing with our own things, whether it's systemic issues or whether it's personal issues or a combination of both, right? Sorry, there's a dog in the background. Is that
Yeah.
okay? Okay.
No
All
worries.
right.
All good. He's
Okay.
participating.
No, have mercy. Sorry. And I'll start over. So, like, whether you are dealing with systemic issues, whether you're dealing with interpersonal issues or social issues on your own or a combination of the two, there is this beautiful, unique opportunity in your life to, like, really, like, figure it out. There is no blueprint for all of us. And so I think
Mhm.
that's where it kind of comes from. It's like my mom, but then also this idea in my head where it's like, wait, like this is a tapestry that I'm painting for myself and it's mine and I only get
Yeah.
one shot.
Yeah, yeah. That's so interesting how the framing of I had part of my life was I experienced abundance and then filling in the blanks. I'm assuming that the part of it you're going to say was a
Yeah,
scarcity
it was.
framing. I think that's such an really powerful background to have, blessings on either side, and maybe frees you up in some way to take from those experiences and build anew again. Some of the most interesting people I know have come from having some version of all whatever and then they've lost it and then they're trying to recover what it means to
Yeah.
live. Was this all happening as a teenager while you were trying to like figure so many
Yeah, I
things
think
out?
like I turned 10 and that's when I
Mm,
remember like my life being just vastly different, right? Like my parents
yeah.
separated, like my mom took all of us and moved us to, another part of the state. Like
Yeah.
she was a stay-at-home mom, so it was like just a very different experience. She ended up getting her teaching certificate and being like, she's just an amazing
Yeah.
person for that. But like,
Yeah.
I think growing up with an abundant young childhood where like whatever you asked for, you got, and you dressed up every Sunday and
Yeah.
there was, the world is your oyster basically, to really
Yeah.
like seeing at a very formidable time of your life, like your preteen and teen years,
Yeah.
like, oh, like this is what struggle looks like. Oh, this is what it looks like when people don't like you, right? Because of things that are
Yeah.
outside of your control. This is what no feels like, even though you're a person who should have yes to them all the time because of your who you are and how hard you work. I think
Yeah.
it was very it was a reality that I needed to experience because I think it made me a better person. It made me appreciate life a lot more. And it also made me a lot
Mhm.
more focused around like the things that I wanted to provide for my family or the generational curses that I wanted to break or the paths in life
Mm.
that I wanted to take. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you found your way professionally in what seems very, I don't know, like a civic oriented advocacy, community equity driven role. You
Yeah.
were I loved one of your former employers was Gender Avenger, which I was like, this is the coolest term. You were the chief Avenger. I was like, I want to put that on my
Yes.
resume. But in general, I was just curious where this, like, I can make assumptions, but I want to hear from you. Where I think I meet a lot of people who are sort of like rebel without a cause, but really want to be, they want their cause. They're trying to find the thing. And they have kind of a natural disposition towards fighting injustice, but they struggle to figure out how and how to do it effectively and at some form of scale in some way, or maybe that's not as important. But like, where did that nugget start for you? Or is that fair to say that that's kind of the through line professionally of things you're trying to, an impact you're
I
trying to make?
think I don't know if it's been intentional, but I think it's been just a
Yeah.
life assignment for me. Like, I think I'm not necessarily seeking equality spaces or equity spaces,
Yeah.
but that's where I feel comfortable as an individual who I'm like, wait, like, this isn't right. Or have we considered the viewpoints of our community in the products that we build, in the direction that our company is going to go, like what
Yeah.
do they want to talk about? And at the end of the day, that's just best practice, but a lot of people don't intuit in business and in nonprofits that way. I think also just
Yeah.
being, I was a three-sport athlete pretty much my whole life. So
Yeah. Which sports? I want to hear.
volleyball, basketball, and track and field.
Oh, sick. Are you tall?
No, honestly,
Oh,
it's so sad. Like I live that 5 foot 5.5 life, but I could jump like, 2, almost 3 feet off the ground at one point. And so it's like,
sweet.
yeah, I'm like, I'm playing like a player who's
Yes.
like 6 feet tall, but I'm really 5.
I love that. I love that. I'm hating on to the 5 3 3/4 lifestyle, but soccer was my main sport, but I played basketball seriously for a long time at point guard, not
Yes.
surprisingly. And I often thought, because I was tall, I was weirdly taller than everyone until 6th grade or something. So I have this like mindset. I don't think of myself as
Yeah,
small.
exactly.
So I agree. I definitely could not jump 2 feet, but I was surprisingly good in the air in soccer. I just threw a pen everywhere. So anyway, I loved learning that you were a varsity athlete and you played through
Yep, I
college,
played
all
all
three.
3 in college. I have 8 of 11 seasons, all conference athlete in those 3 sports and NCAA
Good for
appearance.
you.
So, I didn't suck, but, like,
Yeah.
I do think being
Sure.
on those teams provided me with a diversity of insight and how
Yeah.
communities operate. What are community norms? What is culture?
Yeah.
How do people resolve conflicts in different kinds of spaces? What's the vibe in the different kinds of space? Can you adapt to the vibe? Can you challenge the vibe when the vibes are not equal? I think sports
Yeah.
allows that kind of experience naturally. And so I think it was just kind of
Yeah.
like an incubator for some of the natural inclinations that I have for bringing people together.
Yeah, yeah. Those are all well, with the exception of track, volleyball and basketball are relatively small
Yep.
teams. I started to notice this in the soccer versus basketball worlds. Basketball, I don't know, we were a traveling crew of like
Mhm.
10,
Mhm.
maybe. I feel like soccer, especially once into college, it's 20 plus people. And it's interesting how that sense of the vibe, for example, is harder to like make universally shared at that soccer size versus the basketball size. I don't know if this is something that continues. Does
It's
that theme
it's
in
true. True
life?
in real life. It's true.
Yeah.
I take track and field, for example. Track and field reminds me of how you would want to manage a large global company. It's like
Yes.
sprinters,
Yeah.
distance jumpers, throwers, you know what I mean? Hurdlers. I don't want to forget
Yes.
anybody.
Exactly. Especially not the
Right.
hurdles.
We're not sprinters and we're not field events and decathletes and heptathletes, right? So like you think
Yeah.
about just how like a large global company would manage all these different tiny companies within, a multinational company versus a small
Yeah.
nonprofit is more like a volleyball team or a soccer team or you know what I mean? Like
Mm.
a small nonprofit is more probably
Mm-hmm.
like a basketball team or a volleyball team. And then a
Yep.
national
Yep.
company is more like a soccer team or a lacrosse team or a
Soccer team.
hockey team,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so those kind
Great points of
right. So
reference.
like you think
Yes.
about how would a head coach manage the culture for these kinds of teams? That's kind of how I think
Mhm.
about, have transitioned into the nonprofit education and business world of how do you take those ideologies there and bring them to these spaces where groups of people come together, they have their own ideas, they have their own lives. Often we
Mhm.
forget about that. Often we don't really put that into perspective when we're making rules and regulations and having people return to office or not, right? Like I think a
Yeah.
lot of the humanity and what makes people want to come back to work every day is often forgotten at the expense of
Yes.
like we just gotta hit the bottom line and shareholder value, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
support the
And
funders
I
if
do
you're a nonprofit. Like
right.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, I feel like the pandemic had a lot of horrible elements
Mhm.
to it. And one that's I think a blessing, but sometimes feels like a curse because you're not getting what you need. But a real awakening within the workforce of what it might feel like to have more control over your
Yeah.
life. And then for that to, and how sort of earned that might be. And then what happens when that's taken away. But you went off and started a podcast with your
Yeah.
kids in the pandemic because what else are we
What
going to
else are we
do?
gonna
That's the cutest podcast.
Thank you.
I listened to a few episodes to catch up and figure out what it's all about, and hearing your little kids' voices on there, so bold. I wanted to ask what you mentioned in the opening, you were like, "We've talked about this, we've never done it, we're finally gonna
Yeah.
do it." But where did this come from? And, like, you seem to very at least you have the podcast and sort of a blog website around Mom of All Capes, now a full-on Substack, but a lot of it is very your kids are a part of
Yeah.
it. You're this unit, it's not just you. Talk to me
Yeah,
about that.
so for
Yeah.
me, it's like, what are the life skills and the experiences that I could provide my children? Like, that's literally the only reason I get up in the morning. It's like, what are
Mhm.
the opportunities out there that they can have? I think during the pandemic,
Yeah.
that like we're all locked in here together. I was
Yeah.
hearing a lot of other moms talk about, like, I wish my nanny was here, or I just can't believe I'm here with my kids. And I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, like I travel for work. I'm so thankful that I still have a job and
Yeah.
that like I could be at home with my kids. I love them. I miss them so much, you
Mhm.
know? Our family was always out at lacrosse and all kinds of other activities and like art and just doing things in the world, spending a lot of time in the minivan and not a lot of time around the kitchen table. During
Yeah.
that time, it's a scary time. I was like, wait, let's have conversations. And then I was like,
Yeah.
wait, let's record these conversations and share them because I'm
Yeah.
sure other people are wondering, what do I talk to about what do I talk about with my kids during this time? And then
Yeah.
we're watching tragedies of unfortunately Black people being murdered. And so
Yep.
you're seeing
Yep.
that and like no matter what racial background you are, your kids are seeing it too because they're online, right? Or hearing
Yep.
you talk about it. And it's like, so
Yeah.
then face it and have a conversation about it. And so I think what we tried to do
Yeah.
was leverage our podcast as we're just your average American family. We're Black. And so that's the lens that we're going to have these conversations from. I'm an
Yeah.
educator. So that's also the lens we're going to have these conversations from. And we're welcoming everyone else into this table to listen and participate and share and maybe experience something that they didn't know they could experience with their kids. I had so many people reach out to me and say, okay, dude, like I stopped the podcast at this point, and then me and my sons had this conversation, or me and my daughters had this, or me and my kids talked about this. And we
Yeah.
never had that conversation. Thank you so much, you know? So for
Mhm.
me, it was just more of a like, I know I'm not the only one. And,
Yeah.
I want to teach
Totally.
my kids these skills. I want to give them, they researched topics. And they were, I think
Mhm.
when we started, they were like 8 and 8, about 8, 10, and 11 when we started that podcast. We've since stopped because
Wow.
now they're full on teenagers. All of them are in high school and they're like, Mom, get out of my face with that, you know? And I'm like,
But guys, remember
right.
that time? Remember that?
I respect
Yeah.
that.
What a time
It's a
capsule.
beautiful time capsule.
Also, just even personally to have that. I skipped ahead a little bit, but can you talk a bit about what was going on as each of your kids
Oh,
arrived? Where were we professionally, personally? What was
oh my
happening?
God. Well,
If
yeah,
we
no, no,
must.
no. Please, like this is why we're here. So I have had 3 kids in 4 years. So that's to give people a
Mm,
frame of,
that's a
yeah,
lot.
that's too much, maybe. Back to
Yeah,
back
it's at
championships.
least two
Right.
too many.
So in the span of about 3.5, 4 years, I've had 3 kids. So where I
Yeah.
was at the time, I think looking back when I got pregnant with my first child, the mommy wars were happening, where it was the stay-at-home moms
Mm,
versus the working moms. That was a conversation. The
mm.
bloggess, if people remember her, she was like a big deal then.
Oh,
I think drunk mommy was like a whole thing during that time. And so I'm looking at all of these different people talk about motherhood from a negative vantage point, if I just want to be very
yeah.
honest, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to our Gen X girlies. Yes, the struggle was real for them. I mean, as an elder millennial, I was like, ooh, our older sisters had it rough, you know? So like, yes, they should be crusty and angry and pissed. I'm okay with that. But
Well
when
said.
so I'm holding space for them. But when I got pregnant, like that's not
Oh my God.
I
Okay.
got pregnant, I was like, that's not the vibe for me. You know what I mean? Like, I was like,
Yeah.
I I never wanted kids because I did a lot of heavy
Mm,
lifting with my younger siblings, because my mom was a single
mm,
mom, and so I was like, I
mhm,
know the responsibility. I've seen what pregnancy looks like and nursing looks like. I'm good, you know? But when I got
yeah.
pregnant, I was like, you know what? I'm going to not necessarily aim to get an A plus, but do the very best. This child has called from the universe to me to have an experience together. I am their guide. I am not their overlord. How do I navigate
Mm,
and build a beautiful relationship that hopefully when we're both adults, we want to hold on to?
yeah.
That was my mental frame. I read all the books, what to expect when expecting. I looked at all of the things. It was a beautiful moment for me to relearn what it means to care for another person while also being
Mm,
hella jealous that all my friends were in grad school getting their PhDs. So like that's where you know what I
mm,
mean? That's where I was. And
yeah.
for then the next
Yep.
3.5 years, that's literally where I was. I was navigating, this is a wonderful opportunity. People in your lineage have had, I'm a descendant of enslaved people. Let's be 100% honest.
Mhm,
My children would not have
mhm.
belonged to me even 100 years ago, right? So like,
Yeah.
for me, I was like, this is an honor while also being like,
Mm,
dang, like the homegirl is getting her PhD. I'm so proud of her. Like, what am I
yeah.
doing? You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. We hear a lot of guests talk about kind of this a sense of responsibility to their predecessors to take advantage of the opportunities that we now have. It's interesting you're expressing that in like a much deeper on two sides, at least. We have all these opportunities professionally that may not have been there before. And then also that's interesting to think of mothering in that way. And just the idea of being able to like have
yep,
your own children. And yet your mindset was the opposite as a parent. You were like, I'm not their overlord. These are individuals. I'm sort of their
yeah.
guide. Did that come natural? You said you did a lot of research. You describe it as if that came from within you as opposed to something that you
I think
learned. But would you say
I
that's
would
true?
say it's like confirmation bias. So
Or
like
yes,
it's
yes.
like right. I
Selective
was like,
reading.
I have these ideas. Is there research out there that supports that? Let me put
Yeah.
my mom
Yes.
PhD thesis together and see, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'd say confirmation bias.
Yeah. Yeah. So your first was a bit of an awakening in certain ways. And then you had 2 more while watching all these other people go get their PhDs. You got another
I
degree
did.
too. Was it a after?
It was
Yeah.
after. So my youngest was I think about 3 when I got my master's degree. And
Mhm.
in grad
Wow.
school, that's when I had the idea of like, well, moms are out here at soccer, at carpool, why aren't they able to advance in their career? That was something during grad school that I was thinking
Yeah.
about with another mom friend of mine. She had just had a baby and she had a little kid. And so she and I were like this during the entire experience
Yeah.
together. And we just kept talking through, like, you know, this is 2012 ish. Like, what does it
Yeah.
mean for moms to be able to pursue their dreams? What does that look like? You know, what
Yeah.
programs need to be in place? What supports? And so we were researching through like networking opportunities just specifically for moms. Now I'm seeing childcare at networking things like different nursing rooms and different things that make spaces more amenable for working
Yeah.
mothers. But at that time, if we all just want to kind of rewind a bit, you know, pre maybe 3 years ago, that did not exist whatsoever. And that's something that she and I were
Absolutely.
exploring during our thesis for grad school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
cool. Did that around having kids, was there a sense of were certain dream to this point, which sounded very personal of why aren't mothers able to achieve their dreams too? Were their dreams deferred for you? Did you take different, did you make different choices around while you were having kids? I mean, we're obviously still raising the children, but like, did it affect your career? Did it affect what you wanted professionally
Yes.
as you had these
Yeah,
kids?
I mean, anytime I took a job, it was around how can I also make sure I support my kids, especially like during a
Yeah.
large part, I also became a single mother, right? And so just
Yeah.
thinking about like, what's my support system like? What are the benefits like? What is the environment
Yeah.
like? You know, how am I going to be after work, right? So, yes, a lot
Yeah.
of my career has been guided by what is it going to be like for my kids? Now that I've been like fired, I have a space to think like,
Yeah.
wait, I can actually, now that they're teenagers, think about what are my dreams? I'm seeing this
Yeah.
like, this is a beautiful moment for me to say, wait, okay, like girl, like you got people
Yeah.
driving, you got folks who could take care of the home and be safe. Like, what do you want out of life? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you found that moment now? You're not, I wouldn't say you're on like the other side of parenting, we're parents for forever, but we have heard from other guests too that sort of as they get closer to college and out the door, there's a little bit of a returning to self, maybe pre self, but also not the same person anymore. There's also a sense of everyone's going to have to accommodate me now, as
Hell
opposed to the other
yeah.
way around. I'm curious what flavor of that or something entirely different you're
Yeah,
experiencing now.
right now, I think it's a redefinition, right? But I also, because I love duality and I love holding multiple truths, you know, on the one hand,
Mhm.
I'm like, yeah, hex yeah, I'm about to be out here in these streets. And then on the other hand, it is a sense of what I love to coin as existential parenting dread. It's this notion that
Mm.
like the world, the reality of the world, and what I'm releasing them in is not what I expected. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
can't mentally just cut the mental umbilical cord from my kids because they're gonna need support. Like in this economy, they may need to come back home and live with me. You know,
Yeah.
they may need a whole bunch of other things that parents in the 80s, 90s, you know, 2010s didn't have to think about when it came to your child turning 18, right? And even
Yeah.
cultural shifts with how we support our kids after middle school through young adulthood, those cultural
Yeah.
shifts have changed. And so it's not just a like, boom, I'm free. It's more of a like, I'm transitioning into having maybe roommates and adult besties
Yeah.
and all of the muckety
Yeah.
muck that goes with that, while also having
Mm.
space to not go to parent teacher conferences and, you know,
Yeah. 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 Can I ask, I wanted to this goes back to the March on
Mhm.
Washington. In 2017 in this clip, I think you were talking there was a moment where you were interviewed and you were saying, I feel responsible for making sure my daughters are better off than
Yeah.
me. And it actually kind of makes me weep to think about that because that feels very uncertain. But I'm curious, how you think about that now. We on this show, we kind of scrutinize this in many ways absurd idea of like, can women have it all? Can
Mm.
mothers have it all? Can anyone have it all? I'm curious what like better off looks like for our daughters. Are we able to do that? Like what I don't know if you've thought about this concept in this your new era, not to make it about Taylor Swift, but like I know a lot of us are trying to do that in a very respectful and I'm not the overlord of my kids, but I feel an obligation to make sure their life is full and healthy and good and in often ways like better off than we were. But I'm just curious how you think about that today.
Yeah, I think if you'd asked me that 10 years ago, it'd be a totally different
Yeah.
answer. I think right now I'm
Yeah.
looking at things that are outside of their control that impact their
Mm.
identities directly, that aren't
Mm.
anything that I could have imagined as harms being in their
Mhm.
way, right? And so when I think better
Yeah.
off, right now I'm thinking like, okay, how do I teach you like mental health, right? Mental wellness, you know?
Yeah.
How do we balance personal responsibility? Because I am a personal responsibility girly with also like systemic injustice. So you may be able to
Yeah.
take personal responsibility, do everything you can, but still not achieve what you want to achieve. And you should not be taking the blame for that. You know what I mean? So like
Hmm.
when I
Yes.
think about like better off, it's really a dismantling of some of the notions that I carry of like, well, if you just work hard, it's going to happen. That's not,
Yeah.
life is so complex, right? Giving them the space to heal because every kid is going to end up on a sofa because of something that their mother did. You know what I mean? Like, you
Totally.
made the mac and cheese too creamy. Now I'm, like, I'm a psychopath.
Gave it to me first.
Right?
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
like, and that I'm not like, again, like, I'm not, I think therapy is really great. And I've told my kids, like, you're going to be on the sofa for this, like moments.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think giving them the space to understand that, like, having mental wellness support is important. And then community. Better off is like giving them the tools and the skills to build the community that they need because as we navigate into a world where there are less and less social supports, there is more
Yeah.
fragmentation, there is more people turning their backs to each other. We have to find the people who we can hold on to.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. One of the consistent requests that all of our guests have is like, I just wish I had the village. I should have been smarter about intentionally building this like village before I had my kids or when I was earlier days in my kids. And an acknowledgement that that requires something of
Hmm.
us. Like the village doesn't just arrive for us. Like we have to participate in it. It's something that no one seems to have been able to do this. You seem actually like professional. You seem capable of
I
doing
can
this
give
work.
tips.
But do you have the village? Like what happened? How did that come to be? And also maybe we don't have the village. That's also cool. Welcome. How the rest of us feel like people are like, I guess I have to pay for the village now. Like
Mm.
I'm just gonna hire people to do my things. But there's just a sense of, this is showing up in all parts of society, of course, and we should blame tech among other things. But yeah, the sense of I really need community and comfort and connection, and yet I don't know how to do that. Yeah, where's the village for you?
So I'll say my village has always evolved. And my village
Yeah.
has never been like my village, my mother-in-law, like my
Mm.
kid's father, family members. That's an ongoing, like that's the background village, like the background RAM of your computer. It's like just working. And I'm very blessed and
Mm.
fortunate to have that. Not everyone does,
Yeah.
right? So that's something.
Yeah.
The other village, though, that I have had to create multiple times over many stages of my life, right? So when my kids were very, very small, I was in a postpartum like zombie world. And I'm like, where are the other moms at? Like, am I tripping? Again, all my friends are in grad school.
Yeah.
I had 8 amazing friends who, while pregnant, just there on it, right? But they're all in grad school and they
Oh,
don't understand
yeah.
what it's like. I would stalk the
Yeah.
playground. Again, this is like 2009 to 2011. I'm out at the playground with my kids. My mother-in-law would come to me sometimes.
Yeah.
And if I met a mom who was cool, I'd be like, yo, let's talk. Let's meet here
Yeah.
at 2 p.m. next week. And she would be like, oh my God, thank you. So like one thing I've learned, you have
Yeah.
to build the village and find the
Yeah.
people that you need. And we ended up having like a group of like 5 moms and it was like 14 kids who were literally all about the same age. And we would rotate the play dates at each person's house
Nice.
so that we could all zone out together for like a whole Saturday because we needed that.
Yeah.
Then that evolved
Yes.
into, I wasn't with those people anymore. So then when my kids went to
Yeah.
elementary school, I found a new group of moms, but I literally deliberately went out to meet these people. And I think a lot of folks don't have the acumen to build community, to build friendship, to build
Hmm.
true friendship, right? A lot
Yeah.
of connection has become an exchange. What can you do for me? right? Or
Mhm.
how do I feed off of you without giving you anything in return? Please believe we've had
Yeah.
those people. I've had those people in the groups and we've kicked them out because we're like, girl, well, this is not what we're like. We're not inviting you to the next one, sweetie. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, you're crossing a line that we're all not about, being able to
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
challenge other people's ideas, I think, without getting
Mhm.
butthurt, being able to stand on
Mhm.
business when there is injustice, right? And
Yeah.
surrounding yourself with people who, care about like the larger community, but also your small group. Those are things that I've
Yeah.
sought out in other people, vetting people,
Mhm.
because not everyone
Mm.
is, stable enough to have
Yeah.
appropriate relationships. So I think the skills of building friendship is what has helped me to build community, and then being open to understanding that like I might not be friends with these people forever, but I am going to
Yeah.
make a meaningful connection with them because that's where we are right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is this something that your mother role modeled in some way that unintentionally sort of, I'm imagining single parenthood, and I want to hear your experience too, but like you need to rely on others even more.
Yeah.
I don't know if as growing up, if you had sort of subconsciously an awareness of what the village could look like and what was normal.
Yeah, I think normal for me growing up was family, right? Your
Yeah.
cousins, your aunts and uncles, your grandparents, like very much family. My mother needed friends. I think her work friends,
Yeah.
her teacher friends were really important to her. And so that was something that I saw. But as far as like the overlap of like work friends with us, that wasn't something that happened. And I think that that's good, right? I think also my mother was like relatively lonely in some ways and really would have benefited from a group of like homegirls that she could
Mm.
just call up on. I think
Yeah.
we are we're encouraged to be isolated in capitalism. Like, I just want to be honest, like I'm gonna be honest.
Yes.
We are encouraged.
Why does that make because I
It's the
agree. I mean, is it
saddest
because
because you can make money off of that. You know what I mean?
you're
Right.
afraid if you have a
And we
problem,
can
then we
solve
can
it.
solve it, pay
But
for
if
it.
if
Yes.
like
Yeah.
my mother-in-law was always there to care for my kids and cook a meal, and even when I was not with her son, she held me down,
Yeah.
right? That's a
Yeah.
lot of services I'm not paying for. I'm not paying for meal prep.
Yeah.
I'm not paying for childcare. I'm not paying for
Yeah.
counseling. You know what I mean? And gossip.
Yeah.
I don't have
Yeah.
to watch a streaming
Yeah.
service because she and I are having great conversation. So like,
So
so that's like having a community means that there are a lot
yeah.
of services you don't pay for. And I would love for our society to opt into that, to opt in for to, you
Hell
know what I
yeah,
mean?
and yes.
Into
Yes.
eliminating services and leaning into building community in meaningful ways. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh,
Let's opt
yes.
in. Opt into community.
Yeah, I love that. Yes. Yeah. Is that something that you learned? I feel like maybe you solved this when you were in your PhD working on your projects, master's program, whatever it was, where you were like, what's systemically holding these mothers back?
Yeah.
Was that something? Do you remember were there themes of things that you
Yeah, so
identified?
the things we identify, and funny enough, our master's program we were there to solve like media, like the dying of newspapers.
Mhm.
And like, we just told our
Yeah.
like person, we were like, look, we're going to talk about moms because we're struggling right now. And like, the person who was in charge of the whole program was like, yeah, dope. Like, girl, like, go be great. Just make sure there's a
Yeah.
media component to this. So,
Yeah.
for us,
Yeah.
it was like, how do
Yeah.
we build community? What are the things,
Mhm.
what are the things that keep moms back and not at happy hour? And it was
Yeah.
literally, unfortunately, a lot of times the workload of caring for kids is on moms. So looking at like, not just providing the space and the container and then the resources and things to ensure that she feels safe and that her kids are cared for while she can pursue dreams and connect with
Yeah.
people, but also teaching her the skills and the questions to ask and what is the value that you're bringing to the table that would be great for someone else. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people think when
Yes.
they're looking for community, it's like, what can I get out of community? And it's like, yo, who do
Mm.
you know that might be hiring for this person over here that then would build the relationship between you and another person? That's how you need
Yes.
to approach community, not just, I want to be a part of the group or I want to get something out of it.
Yeah.
What are you bringing to the
But that's
table?
that abundant mindset that
Absolutely.
you know both sides. I think that's really, people don't approach community and friendships from an
Mm-hmm.
abundance mindset. They're like, I have no friends. I need this friend, but I don't know if I like, yes. And I don't have time. I can't give to them because I have nothing to give.
Just have
That's
something
so
to give.
interesting.
You always have something to
Yeah.
give.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to go back a little bit because we like to talk about identity a lot. And I personally will say that I feel like one of the reasons I'm curious about this is being a mother has never been
Mhm.
a leading identifier for me kind of at all. It's an activity, it's a profession in some way, like it's something I do, not an identity. But it definitely was when I had my first kid, and with each kid, there was sort of a feminist awakening of like, I'm playing a new level of this video game of life that was not accessible to me before. But you had one and then very quickly two more children. You became a single mom. Like you were kind of shifting, you were making different choices about what you wanted to do work wise. I'm just curious, like, how did you hold on to Amber? Or like or did we let go of Amber? Like, I'm curious how you kind of navigated that how did you hold on to yourself so you could also hold on to all these other
Okay,
people?
girl, that's a question that can make us all cry.
Oh.
How do we hold on to ourselves just like in general? I mean, I love that question. I also love motherhood. Gonna agree with you, has never been an identifier, right? When I walk in a
Yeah.
room, like I am a mother, I am a Black woman, I am American, I am this, I am that, right? And also thinking of it from the vantage point of, oh, this is a DLC package for The Sims that whoever's playing my character bought. Guess we're doing this now, you know?
Totally. It's a
Right,
simulation.
like,
We didn't know already,
listen,
guys.
listen, whoever's playing my sim bought that DLC. I think holding on to Amber has been a lot of things, more the spirit behind what I do
Mm,
and less of who I am,
mm.
right? The spirit of what I do is always one of like, okay, all right, sis, we don't know. We don't know this. How are we going to figure this out?
Yeah.
That's Amber. Also all right, things could be worse, but they could be better. They could be better. And we're
Mm,
going to tell the universe that things could be better. Let's make sure things could be better. That's Amber. Or
yeah.
just this idea of like, what's the things that are happening in the world are outside of our control. What are being very salient about my controllables. So that's how I hold on to Amber. That is my foundation. I think no matter what I become, whether I become, a bum on the street or, an astrophysicist or something
Mhm.
later down the line, I need to hold on to the principles and the spirit that guide my decisions, not the
Mhm.
outcomes of, things around me.
Yeah.
I don't know if I
Yeah.
answered your question
That
though.
is so No, but that's so fucking profound and so important. And you're so much more enlightened than certainly me. But maybe I think a lot of our guests and a lot of our audience are people that self-identify and they wish it weren't
Mhm.
so, but as achievers. And a lot of their sense of who they are comes from external validation of things that they have done and achieved. And their sense of self is basically not owned by them. They've like given it away. And it's so it's really important and inspiring to hear incredible people. So they're not trying to, I don't know, you're not trying to prove something. You're like, this is me. And it gives, I don't know, I think I'm envious because it gives someone, you take the power back.
That's
You're like,
part
all these circumstances can be what they are, but I am this, which is unrelated to that. And I feel like it's shown up a little bit in, if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to hear how you talk about it. But you had this long gig at the Female Quotient running program development and partnerships. You're now finding yourself in a forced pivot
Yeah.
of sorts, an opportunity, as many are currently finding themselves unemployed, not necessarily by choice, and are trying to figure out how to navigate that. Black women in particular are being fired at higher rates. So this is something that a lot of people are dealing with. As you were just saying, it's something that could be worse, but it could be better. How can we make this better? I'm curious, like, how you're working through this
Yeah.
phase in
Hella
your niece.
transparently with my kids, right?
Mm,
Like I tell them all the time, like it doesn't matter how smart you are, how brave you are, how anything, like life absolutely happens. Like if you look at my life, like from I was valedictorian of my high school class, right? All the way
mm,
through like college and now I feel like I have had the experiences of someone who is an overachiever, who has done everything right, who has also not done it in the most arrogant way as well, right? Has humbly
Mhm.
done it. Maybe I'm humble bragging right now, but like has tried to be humble.
Will say as a third party objective person to you on the internet, I was like, she seems like a cool,
Thank
humble
you.
person.
I try. Lord. You
Yeah.
know? So I think I'm very transparent with my kids about how my
Oh,
life
yeah.
is a living lab. And I think, especially in this last
Mm.
experience where I got fired, like my kids knew every experience that I've ever had at any job, even when they were little. I talked about work,
Mhm.
with them in a age appropriate way, right? And then now that they're
Mhm.
teenagers, they've seen what I've done with my life. They've seen what I've done at the Female Quotient in the last 4 years. When I suspected I was getting fired, they were coming home from school. And so I was like, y'all want to sit in on a meeting? And they're like, yes, we do, because this has been crazy. And so they sat, not in view, but they sat within earshot and they listened to how I had the conversation that was,
Oh,
had about me being fired or whatever. And at the end of it, I was like, okay, give me feedback. And that's what I
yeah.
said to them. I was like, give me feedback. How could I have handled that? You know, worse, right? And they're like, well, if you'd done this, that
Wow.
would have been crazy. And I was like, okay, what are some notes that, you would take from this in your own life? And so they're telling me like all the things that they've learned from listening in on that conversation and watching me. And then, what are some things that maybe I should have said that you guys know about my experience here? And so they're like, well, they had a few notes, but I think, right, because, like, they're like, well, you should have said this and then you should have did that. And I was like, well, that was not professional. That wouldn't have been
You're
professional.
incredible.
And for me, every single thing
Yeah.
that I have ever gone through in my life, if my kids were alive during that time, has been a learning experience for them, right? Like,
Mm.
also like, well, if you were on the other end and had to fire someone, what would you have done, right? Or how would you have done it?
Yeah.
And I think for me and for them, that was an opportunity for us to not even think about the female quotient and think about what was happening with me and think about, how we might have felt about it as a family, but more so think about it
Yeah.
as like, what are we learning from this? That was an interesting hands-on experience. What are your thoughts? You know what I mean? Yeah.
Wow, that's remarkable. Nobody can
I
do
don't know.
that. Nobody can do that. Nobody, I don't know, even if we don't really care, there's a sense of, it doesn't feel
Hmm.
good to be let go. There's some level of pride, inevitable. Like, that is true
Well,
mothering.
I appreciate you.
That's like queen mother.
I appreciate you.
Good for
I
you.
also like, for me, like my kids, I am all that they have. So I never, not all that they have, like they have their dad, but he's really far away.
Yeah.
So I never want them to feel that if there's anything that happens to me or, our livelihood, that not they should be in the dark about it. Do you know what I mean? I have
Mm-hmm.
always treated our community of a family together as a civic practice, right? We vote
Yeah.
on things. We tell each other like, hey, dude, like this is not right. Here's how we can do it better next time. We navigate through the lens of this is a community. Now, right now we might be experiencing some weirdness because folks are teenagers and sometimes they forget the
Yeah.
principles, but like at the end of the day, like nothing's off the table. I'm not an untouchable God, in our home. And
Yeah.
I'm vulnerable and, I'm also able to be held accountable for the things that I do and the ways in which I create spaces for their safety.
Oh
Yeah.
my, you're
No.
amazing. Move over to
Oh my
Quebec.
God.
It's fucking incredible. Are you kidding me? That's amazing. That's I so much of that is so important just personally, like modeling what is perceived failure and thinking of it as opportunity and dealing with hard feedback and being open about like and all of that, having a growth mindset. But I also think that in this day and age, there's so much uncertainty and so much happens to us. And like linear career paths don't exist, that to be able to model resilience and like learn resilience, which is essentially just what you said when you were like, who is Amber? The knowing who you are, knowing what you're capable of, whether that's recognized or not, taking everything as a learning opportunity is remarkable. And the most important person to model that is their parent.
Trying.
That's going to matter for life. You're
Oh,
amazing.
you're amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Let's get you. Well, do you even want a job right away?
Yes,
Let's
I
get you
would
a
love.
job.
Let
Like
me contribute
flag
to
that.
your
Who should we
organization.
email?
You know what I mean? Like,
Everyone listening, hire Amber. She will do whatever you need to do. She'll make your organization run better, be better, build community. make it cooler, make it humble.
Listen,
Wow.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're a truly impressive person in the way that in the deeper
Thank
way.
you.
Okay, we like to ask every guest these last closing questions if you
I'm
game,
ready.
and it's fun to see how people compare. All right, if you could go back and tell your new mom self one thing, what would it be?
I'm gonna mean it and say, "You're doing great, sweetie." Definitely give her a pat on the back and say, "You're doing great, sweetie." That's what I would
Yeah.
say. That is literally what I'd
Yeah.
say. She was excellent and did everything she could with what she had, and I'm proud. I'm proud of other me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that could have made there is often many things, but anything that could have made the journey of motherhood thus far a little bit easier?
Let's see. I thought because I looked at the question and I thought about it,
Yeah.
and I had my mother-in-law. I had my ex-husband he's an amazing person, amazing dad. So I can't say a better
Yeah.
partner. I think for me to making it easier, I think the world, right?
Mm.
Because a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, Amber, what is the big? I'm like, a lot of my issues are systemic. I don't have,
Yeah.
imposter syndrome. I believe that the sky is the limit and that I could be there, but I have faced
Mhm.
oppressive systemic issues that have prevented my brilliance from coming to life, right? And I've seen other people as
Yes.
well who have experienced those barriers as well, whether they're Black or disabled or,
Yeah.
LGBTQ or whatever. And it's like, for me, removing a lot of the systemic barriers would have made my life easier. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Really quick, in the context of
Yeah.
that comment, do you think of being a mother
Yes,
as
I
like
do.
as or is it you're now there's another system that's holding you
I
back?
think it's both, right? It's like it's
Yeah.
rocket fuel because a lot of us, when we do have the child, we look and we freak out. We're like, oh, shit, it has gotten real.
Yeah.
Lock in, sis, right? you know? Then on the other hand, then there's all of these things where it's like, okay, I could take this promotion and work. I'm hearing stories, especially when I used to work at the FQ, like women who are like, well, I wanted to take this job in, Sweden, but my husband worked here and then we had kids. And I was just like, he would never
Yeah.
think twice. Y'all would have been packing up and moving to Sweden. And maybe, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think
Yeah.
motherhood is also muddied with systemic barriers because of
Mhm.
the unfortunately assigned gender norms on women, many of whom are
Yeah.
absolutely brilliant, and are
Yeah.
within their have achieved so many things. However, motherhood has also pinned them down to the few choices available
Yeah.
in front of them. And that to me is just wildly unfair. Our society
Yes.
has lost, I say this a lot, our society loses a lot of talent because of systemic injustices and things that are just
Yeah.
out of people's control. We lose a lot of
Yeah.
geniuses, a lot of them.
Yes. 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 Would you put yourself in that
Hell
bucket right
yes, I
now, or
would.
you
I
would?
mean, I think I'll give one example. A
Yeah.
friend of mine and I, she's a young mom now. She was an Olympic trial
Mhm.
qualifier. We started a business, and this was pre-pandemic. This was like 2012, right? Helping
Yeah.
kids across the country who are athletes have just digital apprenticeships, right? So we were giving them opportunities in digital media to learn digital media skills and do all these things. We couldn't
Yeah.
get funding because VCs did not believe that two young Black women had a brilliant
Mm.
idea about online learning and using
Yeah.
online platforms to teach kids things. And then now she called me up during the pandemic, was like, girl, we would have been millionaires. I was like, I know. In another world where there's no systemic barriers, we
Yeah.
are. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had tons of experience. That's just one,
Yes.
but there's so many others where I've been like, that was wild. But, you know, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, on that happy note, last question.
Sorry, girl.
No, this is good. I'm glad. Thanks for letting me ask. It's these are the stories that are and the real commentary that I think is
Yeah.
missing. So thank you for being honest about it. All right. Last question is: your kids might listen to this, and we got to get them on the podcast at some point. Is there anything you'd like to say to them?
Yes. Oh my God. Okay. So I want to say to them, okay, I want to tell them, you don't have to make me a grandmother. I did not make you for what your eggs and your ovaries and your uterus could do. I made you
Yeah.
because you have a mission in life that you need to achieve. And that does not necessarily mean extending our bloodline, right? It might mean you're helping so many other people. You might cure a disease, you might not cure a disease, but like, you don't have to make me a grandmother. And I say this to them every so often, just as a reminder, but I'm gonna say it here so that everyone can hear it. They're not responsible for living a future that I'm not a part of, right? For me. They're responsible for living that future on their own terms in the best, most beautiful way they possibly can with the skills I've given them and the skills that they learn along the way. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. I'm saying on a
I love that.
mother's podcast, like, girl, don't have kids.
That's I mean, yes, honestly, yes. That because it's not being said anywhere else.
Lord, I'm so sorry.
No, this is real. This is what is really being talked about. It's not all lovey-dovey mommy shit. It's like,
But
this is a hard reality.
I wouldn't trade it though. Like, I
Yes.
love being their mother. Oh man, I love it.
Yeah.
But I just want them to
Yeah.
know they don't have to do it. There's no pressure.
Yeah. And you're clearly great at it. So, thank you for doing it anyway.
Same to you.
Like so many things women tend to do. We're doing it anyway. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Let's get you the best next job.
We're saying that.
I really, yes. You're an inspiration. Thank you for sharing your experience with us. Beautiful perspective. So
Thank you so much,
Thank
Sarah.
you,
It has been an absolute pleasure. Everybody drink water and hug your mama if you like her.
That I need to drink more water in general, so this is taking this personal.
Yeah.
All right, you're the
Awesome.
best. Thank you,
Thank
Amber.
you.
Have a great rest of your
You too.
day. Wow, Amber, what a hero. I understand why much of her online content is moms wearing capes or moms wear capes. They are heroes. She is a hero. V is out there crushing things on a work level and a personal level and parenting level. So I'm going to fly solo on this little debrief. But a few things that I did flag that I would have shared with V and we would have gossiped about, and it would have been more fun for sure. But Amber's ability to showcase vulnerability is so important and such a powerful model. I think a lot of parents, myself included, a lot of parents that listen to this show are, reluctantly perfectionists, reluctantly achievers. There's a real, we think our role modeling is really important. We want to inspire our kids to be successful people in the world, so they can be effective and they can have a good life and they can be comfortable. I think what's really important about what Amber talked about was that a lot of that is about showcasing vulnerability and highlighting when things are hard and how we deal with them. And when she talked about wanting to leave the world better for her daughters in today's world, that looked like mental health for her. She was like, wellness, mental health is important. How do I model that? How do I help them take care of themselves in a world where the systems will consistently crumble? So that's just even if I can think about visualizing her huddled around her computer. I assume this call came from Female Quotient when she was being let go, huddling around the computer or the phone with her 3 daughters, teenagers around her, listening to how this conversation went. The strength and courage and conviction that was behind that for Amber is truly inspiring. No wonder she was a 3-sport athlete. But behind that is like true growth mindset. Really impressed that constantly she was like, I don't know how to do this yet. Something I need to be better at. She was very quick, but not the exclusive answer was to think about the systems that hold mothers back, hold Black women back, hold many people, minorities back, and really trying to challenge herself and model for her kids this idea of like, there's stuff that I can own that's in my control. And then there's stuff that's systemically happening around me that is holding me back. And that's her real urgency, is to how do we adjust the systems so that everyone, can thrive. I also loved when I was like talking as usual about identity, which I'm obsessed with, but kind of this like, who is Amber? And through a tumultuous period, I'm sure, of having 3 kids fairly rapid fire, separating, I'm assuming, from her husband, finding herself as a single mother. After she admitted, she was like, I didn't even know if I wanted to have kids initially, never wanted to have kids. Holding on to Amber, to her, and now out of, maybe by the time this episode runs, she is, president of the United States or the equivalent, because that would make the world a little bit better. But Amber is not about her achievements or her resume. That is not who she is. It's the principles by which she lives her life. And that, again, is something that I want to hold on to, because you take the power back. You take control back. And then lastly, this idea that, her mindset of related to those principles. Yes, it could be worse, but also it could be better. So let's make it better. And with that, I'm so grateful to Amber for finding the time to share all of her learnings with us. I'm so impressed by the life that she's built through a lot of turmoil, a lot of challenges, and she's building it. So thank you so much, Amber, for being you, raising amazing children. Everyone should go watch this New York Times. We'll put it in the link in the episode, but this New York Times video of her with her 3 kids who were maybe 10-ish and under when with her own mother marching on Washington, women's rights. Remember when we wore those pussy hats? Better times. In 2017 after the inauguration. And it's just it breaks my heart and also breaks my heart open to see her leading so vulnerably and bringing her kids forward in that way. It's really impressive. I would encourage everyone to go watch it and just remember what we can do and what we can be about. It makes our intimate lives better, our intimate families better, and it can, in small ways over time, lead large groups to make better choices. So with that, everyone, good luck out there. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this. I hope you have a wonderful day. And thank you for being here with us. Mwah. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode and we can reach even more rock stars like you. The Mothers is a production of Backline Media, shining a light on those who carry the team.